In this part of our course, we'll create these photo frames. Move these frames to the side to make space on the document's page. The actions we'll use for creating these frames will be important as they will play a huge part in understanding CorelDraw. Switch to Rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. Let's now revise how the knife tool works. Switch to Knife tool and activate only Auto Close on Cut option. When this option is active, the cut part will be automatically closed. Move your cursor over the edge, hold the mouse button and draw the cut line. Switch to the Pick tool and move this part away from the figure. So we can say that the knife tool works OK now. It cuts apart part of the figure and then closes it. We can even change the colour of each of these parts. Let's now try to cut off another part. Move your cursor over the edge, hold your mouse button and draw a cut line. Release the mouse button when you reach the other edge. Switch to the Pick tool. We can now move this part away from the main figure. Let's now activate the other option called Keep as Once Object. Cut off one part. The knife tool works just fine, but Corel automatically groups these two parts after we finish cutting. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Curve Apart. The parts are now separate and we can move each of them individually. Let's do that again. Switch to Knife tool, activate both these options and cut off a corner of the figure. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Curve Apart. We can now move these parts separately. Let's now deactivate the Auto Close on Cut option. We can say that the knife tool works just as the scissors tool in Illustrator. It will cut only parts of the path. Let's leave the Keep as One object active for now. This option will keep all cut parts as one object. When it's deactivated, we can move the cut parts immediately after we cut them. As you can see, now both options are deactivated. The knife tool will work as a scissors tool. This means that we can cut a path. As you can see, the figure has lost its fill colour. This tells us that we've cut a path and made it an open path. We can now cut parts of this apart. Since the first icon isn't active as well, we can now move these cut parts without ungrouping them. Switch to Pick tool and click on a side to deselect. We can now move each of these parts separately. They are now separate paths. Press Ctrl Z several times to undo the changes. Let's now activate the first icon. Now the knife will keep the cut parts as one object. To separate them, we need to use the Break option available in the Arrange menu. Click on the path to cut it. Now click on the left and the right side. We've divided the path into 4 parts. To make them separate, we need to go to the Arrange menu and click on Break Curve Apart. We can now switch to Pick tool and move these paths separately. So this is how the knife tool works. Select all these elements and delete them. Let's move to our main subject. We'll try to create a photo frame. The first thing we'll do is to create a rectangle that's the same size as the photo. It's easier than it may sound. Go to View menu, then Snap to and activate the Snap to Objects option. Click on the side to deselect all objects. And switch to Rectangle tool. Move your cursor over the top left edge and create a rectangle that's just as big as the photo. The second way to do this is to just manually change the size of the existing figure. Let's try it. Switch to Rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. Select the photo and copy its width. Select the rectangle, deactivate the ratio lock, paste the new width and press Enter. Select the photo again and copy the height of the photo. Select the rectangle and paste the new height and press Enter. Of course, we can also just save these values somewhere, in a text file for example. In previous versions of Corel, there was a very useful tool which copied the size of one object and then pasted it to the other. It was available in the Effects menu. This way it was much easier to do it. But don't worry, it's not that difficult. Let's now create a similar figure, which each side is moved by a certain distance from the original figure. Switch to the contour tool, change the amount of steps to 2, and then back to 1. Now change the size to 8mm. So our text frame width will be 8mm. Let's now change the fill colour of the figure to red. This figure is a dynamic figure. It means that the figure will automatically react to each change we make. Changing the amount of steps will change the amount of new figures created on the contour tool. Let's separate these paths. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Contour Group Apart. Let's now look whether or not these figures are grouped. Go to Arrange menu again. As you can see, the Ungroup option isn't active. It's because we had only a new figure. If we would create more than one step, when the figures would be grouped. Switch to the Pick tool, select both these paths and click on Combine. Combine merges objects into one and deletes the overlapping part. In our case, the smaller rectangle cuts a hole in the bigger one. Zoom in on the figure and switch to Shape tool. We'll now create 8 separate paths from this figure. Select all nodes and click on Break Curve icon. As you can see, the fill colour disappeared from the figure. The path was cut at each node. So now each of these lines are a separate path, and their ending nodes are placed on top of each other. Switch to the Pick tool. As you can see, these lines still create one object. Before we can edit each line separately, we need to break this object. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Curve Apart. Click on the side to deselect all figures. Now, each line is a separate path. Before we move on, let's change the nudge distance. Change it to 1 inch and press Enter. Select the 2 top lines and press the up arrow key once. Well, let's change the nudge distance to 0.5 inches and press Enter. This way it'll be easier to move these elements. Select these 2 lines and move them down. Now, select the 2 bottom lines and press the down arrow key once. So now each line is a separate path. We'll now combine each of these pairs into one figure. Switch to the Pick tool and select these 2 top lines. Go to Arrange menu and click on Combine, or click on the Combine icon placed on the property bar. Switch to Shape tool and select the 2 nodes on the left. Go to Property bar and click on Extend Curve to Close icon. Do the same thing with the other side. Let's now repeat this with each of the pairs. Switch to the Pick tool, select these 2 bottom lines, go to Arrange menu and click on Combine. Switch to Shape tool, select the 2 nodes on the left and click on Extend to Close icon. If we would click on the Join Curves icon, the 2 nodes will be merged into one. That's why we use the Extend Curve to Close icon. You can now close the other side of this path by just clicking on the Close Curve icon. As you can see, we have successfully created a new path. Switch to the Pick tool, select the pair on the left and go to the Arrange menu and click on Combine. Select the pair on the right, go to Arrange menu and click on Combine. Switch to Shape tool and select these 2 nodes. Click on the Extend Curve to Close icon. Now click on the Close Curve icon. There's only one more path we need to create. Select these 2 nodes and click on the Extend Curve to Close icon, and then on the Close Curve icon. Now the 4 parts of our photo frame are ready. Switch to Interactive Fill tool. Move the cursor over the top path and draw a gradient direction line from the top to the bottom of the figure. Switch to the Pick tool. Now we'll copy this gradient and paste it onto the rest of the figures. Go to Edit menu and click on Copy Properties. Well, we've selected the wrong figure. Select the bottom figure, go to Edit menu and click on Copy Properties. Select the Fill option and click OK. Select the top figure. Select the figure on the left. This time we'll create the gradient fill line manually. Switch to Interactive Fill tool and draw the gradient direction line from left to right. Zoom in on this object. Correct the gradient direction line. The Snap to Objects option is active. This is why the end of the gradient line automatically snaps to the edge of the figure. Zoom out and switch to Pick tool. Select the figure on the right, go to Edit menu and click on Copy Properties From. Select the Fill option and click OK. Now select the figure on the right. Let's now move these objects together. Select each object and use the arrow keys to move them. I've moved these paths only to make our actions more visible. Let's now change the direction of the gradient fill placed inside the figure on the right. Switch to Interactive Fill tool. Let's look at the property bar. Change this value to 180 degrees and press Enter. As you can see, the gradient effect was mirrored. Let's now change it back to 0 degrees and press Enter. Switch to Interactive Fill tool. Select this figure on the left. Change the fill midpoint to 0 degrees and press Enter. It's up to us how we create these figures. You can even set a different colour for each of them. As you can see, creating a good photo frame requires some time and a lot of patience. If we want to create several frames, we need to create each of them separately. Otherwise, the frames won't fit all the photos. As you can see, we've made a little mistake. We should have made the frame outside the rectangle, but don't worry, we can easily fix this by upscaling the frame. Just hold Shift and downscale the photo, or upscale the frame. Of course, these actions are necessary only when we want to see the entire photo. Press F3 to zoom out. Select all these objects and go to Object menu and click on Group. Let's now talk about the other way in which we can create these photo frames. First, make sure that the Snap to Objects option is active. Click on the side to deselect all figures. Switch to the Rectangle tool and draw a rectangle which is the size of the photo. The first element is now ready. Let's duplicate this rectangle. The copied object will serve as a backup copy. Zoom out and move this copied element outside the page. We'll now use the Extrude tool to create a 3D effect. Select this rectangle and change its fill colour. Now switch to Extrude tool, click on the rectangle and hold the mouse button and move your cursor to the right. As you can see, the effect is now ready. Let's now activate the Extrude Docker. This way it'll be much easier to edit this effect. Go to Windows menu, then Dockers and click on Extrude. In this Docker we can change the settings of the currently selected Extrude effect. This little X is called VP point. It's currently locked to Object. What does that mean? It means that when we move the figure, the VP point will also change its position. Click on Edit button to see the VP point. Expand this drop-down list, select VP Locked to Page and click on Apply. Let's now move the object. Now the effect will change each time we move the figure. It's because the VP point is locked in one place. Click on the Edit to see it. Extend this drop-down list, select VP Locked to Object and click Apply. So that's the difference between these two options. Let's now look at the other options in this Docker. From this first drop-down list we can choose several modes of the extrude effect. When we select any of these options, the preview shows us how the effect will look. Of course, many of these options can be also accessed through the property bar. The difference is when we use the Docker we need to click Apply. When we use the property bar, they are automatically applied to our figure. So for us, it's better to use the Docker. This way, we'll have time to analyze each of the options before we use it. Click on Edit button and move the VP point. These two values are the position of the VP point. Change the H and the V position to 0 and click on Apply. Now click on the Edit button. As you can see, the VP point moved to the centre of the figure. The extrude effect is shown with these dotted blue lines. Go to the Extrude docker and switch to Extrude Bevel section. To do that, click on the last icon placed at the top of the Extrude docker. This section will allow us to cut the corners of the extrude effect. Activate the Use Bevel and Show Bevel Only options and click on Apply. As you can see, the object changed. Click on the Edit button, change the bevel depth to 9mm and then click on Apply. I've made a little mistake. Click on Edit, change the bevel depth to 9mm and click on Apply. Now change the colour of this figure to yellow. As you can see, our figure looks more and more like a photo frame. Let's revise what we've done up to now. First we changed the VP point position to 0mm. This way it was placed at the centre of the figure. Then we moved to the Extrude Bevel section and activated these two options. We then changed the bevel depth to 9mm and clicked on Apply. Let's now convert this effect into a standalone path. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Bevel Group Apart. Go to Arrange menu again and click on Ungroup All. Click on the side to deselect all figures. Now we need to move these figures and delete the unwanted parts. So now we have 4 elements that make one photo frame. Press Ctrl Z to make them return to their initial position. So we create a photo frame by using the Extrude tool. Since we already know how to use the docker, let's now try to make the same thing by using only options from the property bar. Duplicate the backup rectangle and move it to the page. Zoom in on the figure and change its fill colour. Switch to Extrude tool, click on the figure, hold the mouse button and move your cursor down. Let's now change the VP position to 0mm and press Enter. As you can see, the VP point was automatically moved to the centre of the figure. Now, click on the Extrude Bevel icon. Activate the Use Bevel and Show Bevel options. Now change the size to 7mm and press Enter. The frame is almost ready. Of course, this object has now more elements than before. We'll delete them after we break this group. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Bevel Group Apart. Now we need to ungroup these elements. Go to Arrange menu and click on Ungroup. Switch to the Pick tool and move to the unwanted figures. Look also at the photo frame figures. Sometimes the outline may detach from these figures. Press Ctrl and Z. So this is how we can use the Extrude tool and then break it into separate paths to create a photo frame. Well, let's do another frame. Duplicate this backup rectangle and set a random fill colour to it. Switch to Contour tool, change the amount of steps to 2 and then back to 1. Next to the amount of steps we have 3 icons, to centre, inside contour and outside contour. Click on outside contour. Change the amount of steps back to 2. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Contour Group Apart. Now go back to Arrange menu again and click on Combine. The first part of the frame is now ready. Now convert it into 8 separate lines. Go to Shape tool, select all nodes and click on Break Curve. Well, we forgot about one thing, to use the Break option. Go to Arrange menu and click on Break Curve Apart option. Switch to Pick tool, select the first pair and click on Combine. Repeat this action on the other 3 pairs. Switch to Shape tool, select these 2 nodes and click on Extend Curve to Close icon. Now click on the Close curve. Repeat the same thing on the top pair. Let's change its fill colour to yellow. Select these 2 nodes, click on Extend Curve to Close and click on Close Curve icon. Let's now edit the last bottom figure. Select these 2 nodes, click on Extend Curve to Close and then click on Close Curve icon. The photo frame is almost ready, so we've created another photo frame by using the Contour tool and editing the parts which we've gained from breaking the initial figure.